let's move on. Brock Lesnar versus Bill Goldberg. I'm not going to sway you because I want you to go first on this, and then I'll jump in.
It was I said it for AJ and Shane. This was the best case scenario for this match. Neither guy was asked to do anything that they wouldn't be able to do and do well, and that the fans weren't hoping and waiting to see. The Suplex City, the crowd exploded for it. They ate it up. If you were a Goldberg fan, you got to see him do his spots. It was designed to please a Goldberg fan. It was designed to please the Lesnar fans. It was designed to please the fans who wanted a spectacle, and they didn't get it at Survivor Series, but they got the shocking finish that in and of itself made up for the fact that there wasn't a match, because, my God, who saw that coming? My God, Brock lost. The guy who ended the streak just lost in one move, or two moves, whatever it was. So this was the match everybody's been waiting for. It didn't even hit the 5-minute mark, and it shouldn't have, but I'm glad it hit the 4-minute mark. And the guy who's going to be around and needed to go over strong won. And the fans did not reject this match, because I thought it was meticulously and masterfully booked and executed to avoid any chance of the fans turning on it, either because it was too short or too long or too ambitious or not ambitious enough. The word that comes to mind with this is sweet spot. It hit the sweet spot of what these two at their age in 2017 in that spot on the card could do. Your thoughts?
I thought it was absolutely perfect. I just loved it. Everything about it. I mean, these two guys, Brock Lesnar and Bill Goldberg, are not rocket scientists. They're not scientists. They're not wearing lab coats. You've got a Neanderthal caveman versus a Cro-Magnon caveman with high intensity. I mean that as a compliment, because both guys are friends
totally,
of mine. God dang.
Where else is that a compliment? But yes.
Yeah, exactly. I thought it was spectacular. It was. I was thinking, God dang it, can Bill go 6 or 8? Because I was thinking maybe they're going to try to go 6 or 8, because remember, this is Mania, and they went about 30. They went about a minute and a half, give or take, in those first 2 extravaganzas, and they were setting up. They were making Bill. And, Brock was along for the ride, as he should have been and was, and it was perfect. And so to go out there the way they did this, bam, a couple of suplexes and that spear out of nowhere, holy smokes. And they just had the camera on Brock when a spear came out of nowhere, and from then, I'll use my one 4-letter word, the shit was on. I just thought the pacing was perfect, the delivery was perfect, the body language, every single thing. And you could see Brock's big ass towards the end. I thought he was just going to snatch Bill up and just really deliver that F5 with a little bit more mustard than he did. And God dang, when you look at the pace these guys set for as big as they are, for what they did, taking those blows, because believe me, taking those Germans ain't easy. And those spears, when Bill's bringing those spears, those ain't no walk in the park either. I thought they destroyed each other, and I thought the match was absolutely perfect. To your point, the 4-minute mark, give or take whatever it was the magic spot, and the crowd responded accordingly. People were jumping up in the air. They were doing the yes thing, and they bid hook, line, and sinker on everything that these guys delivered, and that's all they needed to deliver was 4 minutes of pure bell-to-bell whoop-ass.
And this is where the star rating system doesn't even work. I mean, how do you give a match this limited that goes less than 5 minutes like 4 stars? Like, you can certainly justify it on a lot of levels, and then on another level, you're like, it just wasn't long enough. There wasn't enough to it. It just this is a match. It's sort of like Shane Styles too. It doesn't really fit the star rating system. It has limitations. This was a match that absolutely was what it needed to be. It wasn't AJ Cena. It wasn't a classic in that way. But you're right. The crowd jumping up and down with their hands in the air. It was the first time they did that since the Hardys. Since the Hardys came out and since Matt grabbed the belts and celebrated with Jeff. There was the first time in the show, and it had been a long time between. But they had that energy for this match. And Goldberg did what he had to do. He looked the part. He talked about how grueling it was to look the part at his age. But Brock's facial expressions and the subtle things that he does are so masterful and so talk about Bret Hart. Brock is authentically Brock, and he knows who he is and what he is, and he is unabashedly that. We don't know that with Seth yet. Going back to Seth, we don't know what authentic, unabashed Seth Rollins is.
Gotcha.
We do with Lesnar. He shined here, and the spear of Goldberg into that timekeeper area was delivered what it needed to, but it was those signature spots in the ring that are so over. And, the kick out and Goldberg's reaction when it didn't work, when the jackhammer didn't work, when it had before, and the leapfrog.
Tremendous. Didn't see that coming, and he jumped. Yeah. He's got about a 40-inch vertical, Jesus. But the way he leapt up there, didn't see it coming, just a perfect takeout spot for Bill. It was awesome.
It was, yep. I mean, that's the thing. There was more in 4 minutes, 45 seconds to get excited about, or as much as there was in Seth Hunter in 26 minutes. And I think that's the point we're making with Seth Hunter is Seth Hunter, we could be talking the same way and the crowd would have reacted the same way if they just had cut down the match. And that's why I say this hit the sweet spot. And that's sometimes, I mean, Steve, you've been in so many of those situations where, you got to make how do you tell the story, in how long, where are we on the card, what's the crowd, where are we in the feud, all of that. And sometimes you hit that sweet spot and everything comes together. And they did that here. And it was.
And when you think length of time, or versus, or along with stars, or how do you rate this, or how do you judge it? What do you compare it to? You don't. You're trying as two performers and the company in general, and telling this story, which was told wonderfully. How are you going to affect that crowd? Did their performance affect that crowd? Yes, it did. Not a single sumbitch was on their seat at the end. Everybody jumped up, and they were happy that Brock won. Actually, it'd have been funny had Goldberg won. I wonder if they would have booed, because everybody knew it was Brock's time. It was Mania. Brock's going to be there down the road. But did they affect the crowd? Yes. Did the crowd buy in hook, line, and sinker? Yes. Did the people react? Yes. You can go out there, you can do all the scientific stuff, all the little technical moves, and if the crowd ain't buying, you ain't done what you needed to do to get them. They did what they needed to do, and I was worried. I was thinking, God dang, Bill, but like I said, both guys are friends of mine, but can Bill weather this storm that Brock's going to bring? And going back to WrestleMania 20 at Madison Square Garden, I was there front and center. These two badass individuals, and just quite frankly, they know it. I know it. The world knows it. This shit didn't go good that night, and it was terrible. All these years later, didn't even think about that, and I didn't even think about that. I was just wondering in the back of my mind, and I was just watching, as I said earlier in the podcast, as a fan, and watching my two buddies go at it, and they crushed it. I loved it.
Going back to 20, did you have a sense that they had a sense that it could go that badly?
I don't think there was a sense of how bad it could go. I think it was both guys were leaving, and neither one really, had plans for the match, or just, I don't want to say they didn't care, because that would be irresponsible of me, because I didn't say, hey man, what happened? Did you not care? So I don't know why that match went so bad. It just didn't go good. It just, how did you describe that match?
It was a time when the crowd knew more than I think the promoters knew a crowd would know. Like it was the beginning.
That both guys were leaving.
Yeah, and I think it was the beginning of having to book legitimately for the internet, like for knowledge being out there that promoters were used to fans not knowing going in. And I think that played into it. I think you played a part because they liked you better than the other two guys. And I mean, like, it was like that perfect imperfect storm where it just everything that could go wrong did. They saw two guys who they didn't think had their heart in the business. And when you're going to WrestleMania, your heart's in the business, and you want to sense that the people you're paying to see love it and eat, sleep, and breathe it. And they will sense that and appreciate it. And I think they sensed that was not the case for the two people who were wrestling. And so, yeah, it was a perfect storm in that way of a crowd rejecting a match.
And it is really, really nice that all these years later, these guys hit a grand slam in that 4 minutes, satisfied the crowd, and they damn sure satisfied me. I hope they're both happy with the crowd, happy with the match, because I thought it was exactly what it needed to be. Let's move on. Go ahead. One
thing I want to give credit to the directing at the beginning of the match. When Lesnar hit the 3 Germans, and then that camera shows Lesnar celebrating, like, ha, 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 now I've got Goldberg figured out. It was like this chill. If you're a Lesnar fan, you had chills. And they didn't show Goldberg getting up and flying through the air to spear Lesnar. All you saw was Lesnar getting speared. Like, there was no warning, and it was perfectly shot. And I just want to give credit to that, because it wouldn't have been the same thing. The audience in person saw it coming, but on TV, all you saw is a cocky Lesnar, boom, getting hit out of nowhere. I thought that was like really smart, and I'm 99% sure it was intentional.
I didn't elaborate on that probably accurately enough, but I did refer to that spot because, he just entered frame, and there was Brock, and it was just it was just an arrow of this gigantic arrow flying through space, and bam, he goes down. Impact was like quadrupled or tenfold just because you didn't see it coming. Like you said, the crowd saw it. Had they been shooting this thing wide, old school style from the 70s or 80s, you would have seen it, but the way they shot it, you didn't see it coming. It just maximized the impact and the effect.
And Lesnar's facial expressions and body language. I mean, I just can't say enough about him. I mean, the glee, and I mean, it was just the equivalent of celebrating before you cross the end zone, and then the look on his face when Goldberg blindsided him, it was like, holy shit, oh my god! It was just like, it was great. Yeah, I loved it. So.